Mark.
And we're here to talk all things drone and as usual, help provide insight into our autonomous future.
Yes, and this week we're talking about the FAA's the operation of unmanned aircraft systems over people final rule. Very exciting to finally see that. Also, Sony Airpeak drone wows fans at the virtual CES. American Robotics snags first ever FAA approval to fly autonomous BVLOS drones. And finally, we have the new Drone Advisory Committee. So welcome.
Welcome. So now let's talk about the regulations first, or the remote ID and the over people and at night regulations, because we did touch on that a little bit on the last time that we got together, but we mainly just talked about the remote ID element of it. So
That's right. That's right.
No, if you want to recap that, and then
I'll kick this off. So it was announced that this FAA ruling was going to come down to broaden the overall use for drones, and this was really amending Part 107 of the existing guidelines. Now, with this new ruling, the FAA put this out yesterday for their final guidelines that drones can be flown at night. They can be flown over people. Those are two very big components of that. And it does only apply to certain weight classes. So it's not for everything, but it is a good framework to start over the next few years. So you're not going to see the heavier drones, really for lighter drones that weigh less than 55 pounds, but it still is a step in the right direction. This is really the first big change since the 2016 remote pilot certification that was put out there. And actually, one other component here is that the restrictions for pilot requirements are not as stringent as they were in the past. So it should loosen up the guidelines for who can become licensed as a pilot. These are not for out of sight or autonomous drones. They're all for in line of vision. But it is a big step forward for the highway that could be built, or the areas that could be built for drones to fly now.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, there's different categories, or drones fall into different categories, and they have separate rules or guidelines for each one of those categories, particularly over people.
That's right.
My understanding, so specifically over cars, because that was an element as well. You can't have just sustained flight over cars, so over a highway or something, but you can now pass over moving vehicles.
That's right. It's vehicles as well. So it really loosens up how you could do it. And again, these are not autonomous. These are still controlled by a pilot, but it just builds the next level for testing and also implementation of drones. So there can be really, with this ruling, you could start to see more delivery drones out there, and also drones operating within a closed environment, such as a construction site or other places where they might fly over the workers at that location.
Yeah.
There are three types of groups. I think it's group 1, 2, and 3. So this really affects the first group of drone classes.
Yeah, and I think that, of course, the focus is on safety, but it definitely is. It's bringing more awareness to people, and more safety guidelines, so that the general public will become more comfortable with these flying overhead. And then particularly with the remote ID, it really brings an element of some transparency to the drone that may be overhead at any time, to where you can kind of get a snapshot of its motions and make sure that it's not in any sort of dangerous situation. It's really meant more for regulators, right, to make sure that it's flying safely and not in any sort of dangerous air zone, or an air zone that it shouldn't be in.
That's right, and it is just for licensed pilots of pilot meaning a loose term. It's not like an airplane pilot, but pilots of the drones that are that have the grade recommendations. So a passive hobbyist, I don't think it applies to them. They can't start flying the drones over people and traffic all the time.
Hmm. Okay. I'll have to read more. I thought my understanding was that it really applied to just about every drone now, with the exception of, you're saying hobbyists. So if you have a very lightweight recreational drone,
Yes.
then would not apply there. But these rules are going to generally apply to all drones over like half a pound, I think it was.
Yeah, so it applies to them. It applies to all of them, but it's for the it depends on the license. If someone's licensed to fly it
Yeah,
professionally, it applies to it. But if someone who's just a hobbyist, they can't really, it doesn't apply to them. So it really is for commercial purposes. But that helps the industry. I mean, the commercial part is what's going to move forward.
yep,
In the same way that the PC market in the late 70s was mostly hobbyists and didn't move forward too fast. But once the commercial component kicked in, that's when the industry took off.
yeah. No, exciting development for sure. And then followed pretty closely with the new development of an approval for the first automated commercial drone flight.
That's right.
Right, that was just announced late last week. Um, Really, I was surprised by how much it hit major news outlets, and I saw, some major network news outlets mentioning this and having headlines about it, and really kind of discussing. I mean, one headline I saw: drones set to deliver packages everywhere in the country in near future, and they're talking about the next 3 to 5 years. So, right, so like
that,
it's
that's
really a headline that I think I'm going to say it plants the seed of acceptance, right, in the general public, or at least gets people's minds, the wheels in people's heads turning about where this could potentially be going.
absolutely. And if the
Right. And
industry
so,
plays it right, that it doesn't scare people and it shows it in a positive light, then it'll work
yeah.
out well.
Yeah. And I think that that's what those regulations are really trying to do, is set some guidelines for usage and for safety to bring some comfort to the general public that this is not just a free for all, and to get ahead of it, really.
That's right.
I mean, you could argue that they're a little behind already, but these are very positive movements, I'd say.
Yes. Yep. So
So
big
yeah,
news there.
American Robotics, based in Marlborough, Massachusetts, they were the first company to receive approval from the FAA to operate drones actually beyond visual line of sight and autonomously.
Wow.
So there are some restrictions, right? So it's not just a complete free for all. I believe this company is mainly focused on agriculture monitoring. They want these drones flown in mostly rural farmland locations. They should only be flying during daylight and at pretty low altitude, so under 400 feet, and there's weight limitations as well.
Hmm.
But either way, a big milestone, really. And I think this is partly in an effort to kind of light some innovation and some momentum here, and broaden the movement in the industry.
Mhm.
But also partly it's like a dipping their toe in the water in a way, to sort of understand these types of operations, see the limitations, see the um, I guess some of the hurdles to broadening these types of operations.
Yeah, I mean, and just by the case study, it'll really have an impact. I know that when uh, when they got approval, the CEO was very excited, and his quote was that this is going to help the industry, and this is
Yeah,
leading. This will open up the $1 billion industry that's out there right now.
yeah, and
Um,
I mean I think that that's FAA actually stated that in their website, that the test could mean efficiencies to many of the industries that fuel our economy: agriculture, mining, transportation, and they're expected to open many additional opportunities for testing and just growing the market.
That's amazing. I mean, that could transform everything. So that
Yeah,
it's like big things, big start to 2021. Wow.
very big, absolutely. And not to say that American Robotics just popped out of nowhere. They've been testing this for 4 years. FAA has been, I guess they've been in communication and updating them on their progress, and they must have won the race for making the FAA feel most comfortable about it. But
Wow.
definitely huge development, and I expect way more to come too this year.
Pretty cool. I know that like the other big news for a provider was AeroVironment. You know, they're a very big German company, and they've just announced that they're purchasing Arturus UAV. So that really complements what they do, because AeroVironment has Group 1 drones, which are lighter drones overall, and Arcturus, they've actually bought them for $405 million. So it's a pretty big purchase. And this is, you know, the Group 2 and Group 3 drones, the heavier drones. I think Group 2 is up to 55 pounds, and Group 3 is takeoff weights of less than 1,300 pounds. So big drones.
Yeah.
And you know, so with all three categories, they're just going to control the market for on the commercial delivery component. But it should be interesting to see how they merge them. And I don't know how the cultures are, but it definitely is. You know, there's been, as far as I know, there's been no real dominant player in the drone market for a big level. You know, DJI is big, but on a smaller level. They have 70% of the market, but it's for smaller drones for the most part.
Right.
This could be an interesting development to see where this company goes going forward. So I'm interested to see.
I feel like we'll start to see more and more of these mergers and you know, hardware companies acquiring software companies or vice versa, right?
Yep.
I mean, you have some companies that are really focused on the autonomy and the mapping, and others that are focused on the actual hardware and even cameras, right? Camera
That's right.
abilities.
That's right. Absolutely.
Or even you know, autonomous patterns to do a specific thing. Like Skydio is really focused on the industrial inspection, right? Or bridge inspection. But you'll probably have some going into the fields of, you know, monitoring agricultural farms or livestock, whatever it is.
Yeah, and be able to do it remotely for years. I mean, if
Right.
You know, especially like with American Robotics, where it's self-recharging all the time, you literally don't need. You could just have an agricultural field be run on its own. You don't need anyone there if they can recharge themselves.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yep. So so that's what I have for that big development. And I think you have one other big news item.
Yeah, so this was, it's not huge, right? Not groundbreaking, but I think it's good to know for us and for listeners, right? That there is a FAA and Secretary of Transportation sponsored drone advisory committee. And this is a 12-member committee that helps to advise the government on next steps, updates within the industry, and I guess just general future thinking about where this industry is going, right? It's listed as, or stated as, a broad-based, long-term federal advisory committee that provides the FAA advice on key drone integration issues. And it's not brand new, right? This was a couple weeks ago that they just announced that there were new members moving into these positions. So the committee's been around since 2016. The real focus, beyond what I just generally stated, is really safety, scalability, and efficiency. So really working to build out the vision and strategy for UAS progress within the US and then identifying challenges and working through solutions for those three big fields there. Like I said, 12 members, key stakeholders from all across the industry, whether it be CEOs, tech specialists, educational leaders. And just name a few here. There's a member from the Los Angeles DOT, someone from American Airlines, VP of Regulatory Affairs. You have someone from Amazon Prime Air, Adam Bree from Skydio, CEO there. And then CEO of Drone Service Providers Alliance. So just a vast array of key members in the industry currently that joined this committee.
Wow, that's that should move the industry forward, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, seems like everything's lining up.
Everything it really does.
Coming into place.
Suddenly, it's kind of like what we've been saying, but it's happening, I guess, faster than I anticipated.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
But yeah, the other thing about this committee is that it's a government-sponsored committee, and so they're very transparent with their meetings, what they're discussing. There's the minutes from past meetings, charters, all that. And you can find them on the FAA website. So yeah, I'll be keeping an eye out.
I mean, you know, that we said this in the past also, but it is a big factor that the FAA, it seems like they're reaching out and they're partnering well with the industry leaders in the country. So it's a good government, public-private partnership that's been developing. I know everyone who's been in the industry they're saying this has taken forever for us to get to this point, but you know, it does seem to be happening fast now. And the FAA comes from a point of view where they had a flawless record. No agency has that record of just no accidents in years. So it's hard for them it's hard to argue with them, and they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand the priority of safety, you know, being number one. I mean, you can't jeopardize that as you expand. But I agree with you. I think there was a lot of pressure to get moving on this and to catch up and really start to get ahead and start to build out this infrastructure.
That's right. That's right. Good stuff.
Yeah. So those were the two, excuse me, big newsworthy updates. The other ones I just found were fun. There were some developments in surfing videos being caught in Hawaii by drones. Right. So there's just another area that I hadn't thought of. Catching surf footage. But I mean, generally that falls into the sports realm, right?
That's right. That's right. New way to present it. Absolutely.
Yep. Drones replacing cowboys to track cattle on the farm.
Wow.
There you go.
What's Billy Crystal going to do? Yeah.
And then we've seen some drone tests over live traffic. And I know I stated earlier that there's currently not allowed sustained flight over traffic. But as I thought through that, I'm thinking, you know, here we have every day helicopters that fly over morning traffic in major metro areas, you know, burning fuel.
Yeah.
Potentially putting people's lives at risk, right? Up in the helicopters, and not being able to really be everywhere at once. To give a good, decent overview, but you know, you think with drones, you could pop drones up over every major highway going through a metropolitan area and provide updates and video on all that.
Yeah, rather than just one helicopter flying around there, you could have one in every road. It's absolutely true. Switch back and forth. And I also know that over the last day, there's been two stories that have not been resolved yet. That there's search and rescue missions going on. One is near K2. There's one of the peaks near K2, not K2 itself, but there's a climber who his partner and him were up above the base station, and his partner, he didn't want to keep going. He didn't want to try for the summit, but the other guy did yesterday, and he never came back. So the main way they've been searching him, they're still searching right now. Main way they're searching is via drone. So they're sending drone
Wow.
all around every crevice all the way up there. Hopefully they find him. And I know that there's also in New Zealand, there was a kayak that they found and the guy was missing. So right now they're doing search and rescue missions trying to find him, mainly by just having a whole bunch of drones out there surveying a wider area at once. So
Yeah.
no positive ending there, but it
Well,
is interesting how they're being deployed.
I've seen positive endings recently.
Yes.
A number of articles about drone helps drowning man,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saving lives.
Saving lives. They're doing it.
Oh, and here's real quick, another one. The military, there was a test set up with NATO, soldiers, and then drone up. And they tested and succeeded in this test in providing ammunition to soldiers via drone on the battlefield. And so you can stock certain cases of ammunition identified, and you could have a unique identifier signal that you just hit a button on your uniform, your helmet or something, sends the signal out, drone comes over, knows that it's you, drops the specific ammunition, and then is out of there.
Wow. That's amazing. That'll change how they're just servicing the front. It's just,
yeah.
No, because I mean, war is won by logistics. That's what wins the war. It's just the grind of resupplying.
Yeah.
And that could change the game on how, if you're better at delivering stuff by drone, of just constantly resupplying the troops, whether it's food or ammunition, then
right.
that's a big factor.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be ammunition. It could be vital supplies of any sort, right?
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of the entries were just not the front guys in the front, but the supply trucks, guys just driving a food truck to the front line, were always bombed all the time. So hopefully that goes away. Amazing.
Well, let's hope there's no more wars or no wars that pick up this year that we have to see that in use. But interesting development either way.
Yeah, that's wild. Cool things afoot.
Very cool. All right. Well, hopefully you guys found this conversation informative. Say if you liked it, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe.
Absolutely.
And with that, until next time, fly safe.
See you next time.